Pick up your teeth.
Ah, damn it.
Razin, what the hell, man?
I'm sorry, man. I was trying to squeeze out some damage. That's my bad.
Alright, dude, you know what? That's it. You're going on one button rotation for the rest of the night. I can't take this.
Dude, no way. Come on, man. Don't do that to me.
I don't want to hear it. Turn that shit on now.
Alright, fine. What up, gamers? I'm Aaron, and on my last video centered around the add-ons that you need to have, I got one peculiar comment, and I wasn't really sure how to respond to it. Now, in my younger days, I'd have loved to call this guy a noob and give him a virtual swirly, but I've grown older, wiser, and it wouldn't do much good anyways, because just the other day, Blizzard announced their very own built-in Hekili, and even a one-button rotation assistant. So this guy's probably feeling pretty vindicated, right? Well, today I'm going to talk about why I think using these tools is actually probably hurting your damage more than you realize, or at the very least hindering your growth as a player. So let's start by asking ourselves what a rotation helper is actually doing for you. The most common example over the last, I don't know, years at least, example of a rotation helper has always been Hekili. Now, this is basically just a scrolling list of what you're going to press next, and the assumption that is made to kind of back up this add-on is basically, if I always press the correct button, I will do the correct damage. But this is already kind of a ridiculous assumption, and that's just due to how these add-ons are actually built. So to look at that, I'd like to bring up a video I made last month on how to sim your character. One thing I did not mention all in that video is actually how the simulation determines what the proper rotation actually is. The way it does that is actually very similar to the way that a lot of these rotation helpers do it, and that is through the simulationcraft APL, or Action Priority List. I won't get too into the weeds on what this is here, but you can see here I'm showing the example APL, and it's basically a list of, if X condition is met, then you would press Y. This is great, aside from the fact that, as you can see, there's no line that basically says, if you're on One-Armed Bandit with a low AoE raid composition, make sure to hold cooldown so that you can juice your damage on the unCCable bomb adds. But that doesn't exist, and nothing for any of the other bosses exists. So, for a lot of sims, the only boss encounter that these are truly tailored towards is this one. Honorable mention, of course, to the Butcher in Highmall and any boss made before 2007. Take Mythic Mugsy, for example. If you haven't done this fight, there are occasional ad spawns that take 100% increased damage. These little robot bozos here. There are so many occasions during this fight where the right play is something Hekili would never actually recommend, and that's because sometimes the wrong play is actually the right thing to do. Here's an example, okay? Here, I use shifting power before my hyperthermia ends. This costs me a good chunk of combustion CDR, but I do it anyways because it's the only way that I will have shifting power up again before the next double damage ad spawns. Here's another one, this time from Mythic Gallywix. If there's ads up and I'm still waiting on combustion, there's plenty of times where I get just insane value out of just pressing Fire Blast at non-APL approved times just to spread my ignite to these ads. These are things that rotation helpers, which have an incredibly low context way of thinking about the situation, are gonna miss. And the further your fights get from a training dummy, the less and less your rotation is going to be able to catch on to moments where maybe something you're doing griefs you right now, but in 15, 20, even 60 seconds, it could pay off far more greatly than it would ever expect. If you want to be a player that pushes the limits, you can't be so attached to what the APL tells you is the right thing to do. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that Hekili is not gonna maybe help you do some more damage if you're just smacking around a patchwork boss. Hell, maybe even the first few mythic bosses. But once you get into the real endgame content, just doing your rotation decently is not enough. Every player that makes it to, Mythic Mugsy, Mythic Gallywix, can do their rotation decently enough. So if you want to shine and really pass them up, you've got to learn to adapt to the fight better than they can. And that's not what Hekili, or even the upcoming Blizzard Hekili, is about. You sure as hell aren't going to be outthinking them if you're spending your whole time staring at whatever button your add-on lights up next. Alright, so we got that out of the way. Now I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. Is Hekili ever the right play? Well, maybe. I mean, like I said earlier, they might help you do more damage if you're completely lost by yourself. But if you're having to stare at what button to press and really actively think about Hekili, you're not going to be putting out maximal damage anyways. Remember that the goal is to be training yourself to do your rotation without thinking. You want it to be like maybe 25% thinking about what you're doing, and 75% thinking about playing the boss. So a rotation helper kind of adds a middleman here, where you're thinking about what Hekili tells you to do, and then you're doing that thing, and then you're also thinking about the fight. So I personally, and this is just my opinion, think that the optimal play is to let yourself suck for a bit in order to become more comfortable. Remember, there's never any shame in being a noob. If it weren't for noobs, the achievements of gamers look a whole lot less impressive. So I'd say, be willing to suck for a little bit, and with some conscious effort on improving, you'll be playing at a passable level a lot quicker than you'd expect. If you do want to use Hekili or the upcoming Blizzard rotation helper to get a little more comfortable, that's probably okay, but just like you don't want to be a 30-year-old man biking around with training wheels on, try to have a plan to kind of distance yourself and take Hekili off. Because if you're just following it and it seems like something you're doing is efficient, then you're actually starting to really take big steps towards not needing it. You want to be actively considering these things and thinking about how your spells work together in the situations you find yourself in.
GG's.
Mass barrier.
Holy shit, there's
What-
no way you said
what a
that in real
dumbass
fucking
boss.
life.
Fucking
There's no
easy.
Alright, now let's talk about this whole one-button rotation thing. Is it a problem too? Well, if you get your news from dumbass sources, you might be thinking that the sky is falling and this feature is the end for all PvE players. Well, come on guys, it's an accessibility feature. If you're playing WoW with your feet, or you can't do your rotation for some physical or mental reason, you're probably really glad that this feature is added. And I think that's cool. But I don't think Blizzard has any intention of letting this be the optimal play. And I think if there's any chance that putting this on is the right thing to do, I have no doubt they'll nerf it. I mean, think about the absolute worst time that you've ever played World of Warcraft. For me, it was 9.2, The Chains of Domination. Now, this patch was so fucking bad, it's incredible. And yet, I still played it. Why did I play it? Well, I played it because I felt like I was doing fucking ninjutsu every time I was fucking hitting crazy-ass combos with my 95 APM Outlaw Rogue. I willingly queued into Spires of Ascension, a dungeon so bad that getting waterboarded by the CIA is a decent alternative. I voluntarily raided Mythic Kel'Thuzad, the raid boss equivalent of getting your balls crushed with a mallet. And I would have kept doing it because my class was just that fun. And that is kind of the thing that makes WoW so amazing for a lot of us. And I have no doubt that Blizzard has no intention of killing that by turning your rotation into glorified cookie clicker. But if you're worried about one-button rotators passing you up on the meters and making you feel pressured to one-button yourself, let's think back to the Hekili situation. The one-button players are going to be physically incapable of adapting their rotation to fights. They're simply moving their character around in the 3D space and hitting their singular button. So not only that, but their increased GCD leads to a lot of downtime, especially for melee specs. So you might have a bit more trouble on bosses that just do nothing, but your ability to master fights will outpace them no problem. If it were up to me, if I was Blizzard, okay, I would probably nerf the one-button rotation a bit more, just so players really understand that this is not the intended way for them to play. Another thing I would probably make it so that your spell casting speed is also reduced, because casters kind of get away with murder here with the GCD increase, because while melee specs are locked into their globals and really lose a lot, casters kind of get away with murder. Most of their spells are longer than a GCD anyway. So, seriously guys, don't worry about feeling the need to use the one-button rotation. If it ends up being good, trust me, I will be right there alongside you, ready to burn down the WoW subreddit and the official forums. Alright gamers, so that's everything I've got today. Now, if you disagree and you want to argue with me in the comments, I would love that, because I read every single one and I've got plenty of time to do so. Feel free to share your opinions, whether you want to make the case for rotation helpers, or if you have any more questions or situations on, is it the right thing for me, how should I wean myself off of them, I'll be there to interact with you in any way that could be helpful for you. So, if you're interested in more content pertaining to kind of leveling up your WoW gameplay, I would love it if you would check out my channel, see what other videos I've got up there, and I've got a lot more coming in the pipeline. So, I would love to have you as a subscriber. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Aaron, and I hope to see you around. Peace. Getting your balls crushed with a mallet.